Hello everyone and welcome to the first of our free webinar series here at MBC Renewables. This webinar today is regarding a very special topic. We are looking at the history and the evolution of the UK energy market with a very special focus on the renewable side of said market. MBC Renewables are an equal opportunity learning provider. We do not discriminate. Please take the time to look at our equality, diversity, and inclusion policy here. You can contact our learning team with any questions at any time at info@middlemass.com. We've also got our learner line, and I do encourage you to check out mbcrenewables.com where you can find more of our offering. I'm your host today, or your presenter rather, Michael Middlemast. A brief history about me. Lots of cheesy pictures of me here with my hat on in front of solar panel installations across the world. I've worked in the North American market, worked in India, West Asia, many international markets as well as here at home in the United Kingdom, and I've been in the solar and renewable energy industry for around about 15 to 16 years now. So all of the content you see today is going to be from real life experience, and there's a lot of pictures and content we've got for you here, which should be eye-opening on this presentation about the evolution of the UK energy market. This course is really an introduction to our larger MBC 101 renewable energy training course. This is done on a monthly basis. Check out mbcrenewables.com to find out when the next date is available. We would love to have you there. It's great for those just entering the market, great for those that are looking for a refresher, and even for veterans. We give a lot of content and a lot of value, as well as a lot of after sales support, helping you on your renewable energy journey. As well as the monthly course, we can offer one-to-one trainings where I would create a bespoke learning package based on your exact learning requirement. For instance, we can target certain markets and sectors you would like to look at, and indeed different technologies. But I do encourage you to check out MBC 101. It's been one of our most popular courses, really, and please do check out mbcrenewables.com. Small example agenda of MBC 101, and today's presentation we're really just going to take from bits and pieces of the larger presentation. So we're not going to dwell on this for too long, but you can see some of the other topics that we cover, particularly the solar sales and marketing techniques, and the other technologies. Energy storage is really good for the salespeople out there and that are looking to drive sales forward within their business. So, into the presentation proper. The UK has really been an innovator in the renewable energy space for a long time, although that might not seem apparent. But the UK's journey with renewable energy dates back centuries, literally centuries, with water mills being used for grinding grain or powering machinery, really one of the earliest forms of harnessing energy from natural sources that we've seen here in Great Britain, and indeed that technology has been innovated across the globe. But in terms of modern renewable energy installations, it was really wind power which was really the pioneer here in the United Kingdom. For instance, the UK's first wind farm at Delabole in Cornwall, I do hope I pronounced that right, I don't think I did, Cornwall, that began in operation in 1991, which for the millennials and above may make you feel old there. That's a very long time ago now, marking a real significant milestone in the country's shift towards renewable energy sources. So we can see the culture here in the United Kingdom is really to harness energy from natural sources. We've done that, whether it be renewable or non-renewable. We want to work with what we have here on our British Isles. It wasn't until later that solar energy started developing within the UK, whereas in Europe, I think it was more developed, particularly in the Germanic markets. We had a lot of solar thermal in the Mediterranean, but the UK was kind of late to the party on the European scale. But solar energy still has a long history here in the UK now, and the significant development was only recent, occurring in the 21st century, and it was really the feed-in tariff that we're going to cover in greater depth later on in the presentation, which was introduced in around 2010. That really significantly boosted solar panel installations, not only across residential installations, so people's homes, private homeowners, etc., but also it led to a boost in the number of installations in commercial, industrial, agricultural properties, etc. But looking back, the real early days, the pre-1990s, it was really hydroelectric power was our real first significant foray into a renewable energy source here in the United Kingdom, and this involved primarily plants located in Scotland. The construction of the North of Scotland hydroelectric board schemes during the 1940s and 1950s really showcased our commitment to diversifying energy sources. So we didn't want to be relying on energy from other nations, etc. So the more we could internalize that, the feeling was, and secure our own energy supplies. And Scotland has been a wonderful part of that journey, as we mentioned, starting in the 1940s. These projects played a crucial role in rural electrification, thereby enhancing regional economies. So whereas energy was more common and we had more blackouts in the rural areas, but it was more common in the city areas, it wasn't until kind of we were able to diversify our national grid with other forms and cheaper forms of energy that we could bring electricity right to the end of the grid lines and supply some of the more rural areas, which obviously allowed for economic development within those areas, commercial entities to flourish, etc. And continuing on in the pre-1990s, while the UK's focus on wind and solar during this area was quite minimal, as I said, we just had the big plants, the hydroelectric plants in Scotland. There were early developments, really early developments, particularly in the fields of wind turbines. The island of Orkney in Scotland is one of the most innovative renewable energy locations in the whole of the country, and they were real pioneers and among the greatest pioneers of wind energy technology. And they were aiming to test and improve the viability of wind, and it really helped wind become a substantial energy contributor here in the UK. And this wonderful picture on the right, this black and white original picture from Orkney, shows that very much experimental wind turbine there, which you could see the initial state of the evolution there. That could easily be developed into what we have today, and indeed it was. So if it wasn't for pioneers such as these in this renewable sector in Great Britain, we wouldn't be where we are now. The 1990s really saw the rise of renewables. We're still not into the solar era yet. That did come later, but the non-fossil fuel obligation introduced in 1990 were really pivotal in acting as a catalyst to promote electrical generation from renewable energy sources. The policy provided financial incentives for renewable energy projects, leading to deployment of the first significant wind farms in Cornwall in Northern Ireland, marking a decisive shift towards industrial scale renewable energy production. So you can see here on the right, this is a map of the wind farms up until 2017 in Cornwall. Quite a significant density of wind farms, and a lot of this was thanks to, again, the NFFO program introduced in 1990. However, this system was replaced by renewable energy obligation certificates later down the line, but still a real instrumental policy by UK government to help wind spread across the nation. The 2000s, this is when we started really getting help as an industry, as the renewable energy industry, and as the energy market as a whole, and indeed how the country got help as a whole by real positive policies by central government and local governments in driving the production of renewable energy across the country. The 2000s was when the real revolution sort of began, and we saw more widespread installations and through to the 2010s and the 2020s, as we're going to see. But it really started with these renewable obligations. The RO was launched in 2002, and it required electricity suppliers to produce a growing share of their electricity from renewable sources. So that it wasn't an option now. They were really required to diversify the energy mix. The legislative framework here was really, really successful, and we can see that the UK government has implemented several successful frameworks since, and it drove the drove the UK's energy mix from having only 1.8% in 2002 to approximately 12% renewables in 2015, which you can see with the graph on the right-hand side. This helped reduce carbon emissions. It really helped us secure our internal energy security, and was really a good thing that was done to assist the renewable energy market and indeed the overall energy market here in the UK. The government continued to support. So we had renewable obligations, which were great, as just mentioned. But then the Climate Change Act in 2008, 2008 was landmark legislation. It set legally binding carbon reduction targets, including an 80% cut in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and we're on our way there. Hopefully, we're on our way there compared to 1990 levels. This act has really been the driving force behind substantial investments in renewable technologies and the reconfiguration of energy infrastructure to support decarbonisation. So we're really trying to save the world with these acts and being in this renewable energy business. Not to get on my high horse too much, but really it's the work of trying to save the country and the world from climate change, but also secure our energy so we don't have blackouts and we don't have national disasters due to energy, which is not what we want to see. The 2010s then saw a real rapid growth and technological advancements. The 2010s were a real heady period for the renewable energy industry, and we haven't even talked about solar PV yet. The country as a whole led a great deal of the world in wind with our offshore wind leadership by commissioning what's called the London Array in 2012. It is one of the largest offshore wind farms in the world, and it symbolized our leadership in this field. And you can see a nice picture of it there, or quite wonderfully spread out in the sea. With a 630 megawatt capacity, it can power nearly 500,000 homes and significantly contributes to reducing carbon emissions. So when we install something like this, and we're pulling energy from a renewable energy source, it means we can pull less from dirty sources such as coal and all of the rest that are non-renewable. So this really does help on a global scale to assist with climate change. Wow, here we are. We've come a long way from our windmills grinding flour, etc. And in April 1st, 2010, the UK government introduced something really revolutionary for the industry, which was called the feed-in tariff scheme. This paid you for every bit of renewable energy that you generated. It didn't matter whether you used it, whether you exported it, whether you stored it. As long as you generated it, you were paid for it by the kilowatt hour. Initial payments were incredibly high. Some were up to 50.67 pence per kilowatt hour, and this caused a real massive boom in solar. And this was both a very good thing for the market. It helped with consumer awareness of solar PV technologies, has helped with the spread and buying power of wholesalers and put the UK on the map for solar. But there were also some really untoward installations that happened. There was free solar programs which have some let's say, morally questionable ethics behind how they were implemented here in the UK. Not calling anyone by any names, but you can see here on the graph on the right hand side, in 2010 we had very few installations, and with the feed-in tariff implemented, we've had this skyrocketed um, uptake of solar PV, and it we had virtually zero prior to 2010 in solar, and then now to over 13 gigawatt by the end of the decade, which was quite a massive leap. And indeed, we've leaped massively again over the last couple of years here in the UK as well. So things were very different back then. So this is where I kind of entered the picture. And this was the very first project that I ever worked on. And Romag are still around. They're now called Delna Romag. They don't produce solar modules anymore. However, they do produce a range of really excellent glass, bulletproof glass, specialist glass applications, high pressure stuff, etc. But they did have a module called the Romag SMT6. It was a 60 cell polycrystalline module, and being a manufacturer, they wanted to invest themselves. So I helped in this very odd installation. Well, it turns out in hindsight this was quite an odd installation, because you can see by the picture on the bottom right, we've got a lot of facade modules there, which is not necessarily the most efficient looking back. But the rooftop system, again, this was really interesting. This was a very again, the market wasn't mature, so the technology wasn't mature. So the mounting system here was actually heat welded to the single ply membrane of the roof. So quite inefficient modules compared to the 15 years later. Module efficiency of only up to 14.9%. We now have modules which are 25% efficient, and these modules were indeed only around 150, well, 235 watt peak in this case, but we'll see some smaller modules. And these days we're dealing with modules 500 watts plus with new and more efficient technologies. Couple of other examples of the module technology. Remember, we're in the 2010s here. We have the Mitsubishi 185. Again, a really nice looking module, but these modules were quite thick, and the Mitsubishi was lighter than a lot of other solar modules. But Mitsubishi aren't in the solar module market anymore. It's not a product they produce. BP Solar, again, a brand which is not around, and again, we've got the 0 watt photovoltaic module here, which is it's laughable. We wouldn't be putting this sort of size module on an installation these days. So you can just see how far the technology has developed in terms of efficiency. But yeah, Mitsubishi no longer making solar modules, and BP Solar no longer making solar modules. Both of these guys made a real big play in the market, but they had some impact here in the UK. And from anecdotal evidence, I've heard people that have the Mitsubishi modules that are still working really robustly now. So I think that says a lot about the workmanship. The biggest brand back then, and again, we're in the 2010s here, was Sharp. They were really one of the largest across Europe. They had the name and the brand name recognition of Sharp. Not often in solar PV do we have, and indeed in renewable energies, do we have a brand name that is recognizable by the majority of people. So, but the modules weren't as high powered as they are now. Again, 250, 235, 245. The efficiencies were quite low. So this just gives you an idea of how far the technology has come. And if we now look to the future, just think how far the technology is going to go. I think we'll have modules with integrated module level power electronics. So that would be microinverters, DC to DC optimizers, fire safety, etc. I don't think in the future you'll have to install a separate box for that. I think it'll be integrated into the module itself. Inverter technology has also come on leaps and bounds. This was a typical inverter in the UK 10, 16, 14 years ago, whatever it may be. The Dell Platinum. Dell do not make solar modules anymore, and also solar inverters anymore, apologies. And the image on the right, now these are SMA Sunny Boys. SMA are a very robust manufacturer. They make very good products, but we can just see some of the inexperience of the installers here. They've mounted the inverters on top of each other, which is not very good for heat dissipation. And we've got some other errors there on the installation, all the inverters going into a single isolator, etc. So not only has technology changed, but installation practices and education in the market has really changed too. So this is where I started my journey in renewable energy, and this company was called Cleaner Air Solutions. We dealt with all type of installations, mainly solar PV, but we also had a training facility for installers, which you can see up there on the top left also. So quite a big installer for the time, and I do apologize for the old pictures. This was obviously taken with something like a Sony Walkman phone many years ago. But Cleaner Air Solutions, again, we're a wholesaler. This is when wholesalers were just finding their mark here in the United Kingdom. CGen were around, CCL Components were around, Midsummer indeed were around, and a couple of others which are no longer with us. But during this time is when Solar Edge first entered the UK. So Solar Edge have been in the UK for quite a while, and you can see the Dale Acco inverters there at the back. So we had our wholesale arm of the business, but Cleaner Air Solutions also installed solar PV systems. So I look back through my files and whatnot from the time, and I managed to find this really interesting ad. And I swear this is from the time, this is of the time in the May 2010. And this is an offer that would be put out typically by Cleaner Air Solutions. So this would be for a 2.2 kilowatt peak installation. This would cost you £9,995. However, it would pay back within 9 to 10 years. So just to give you an idea of how far the market has come, for a 2 kilowatt peak installation now, it would be anywhere from £2,000 to £3,000, I would imagine, depending on the building and scaffolding required. And we can see that the feed-in tariff was very much part of our calculations. It was the main driver for people to get PV. And yeah, very interesting. And another interesting point here is that back then the typical import price, so what you bought electricity from the grid for, was 13.5 pence for kilowatt hour. So again, that's up at 20, 25, 30 for a lot of residences. So very interesting the way the market has adapted. But because this was now viable as an investment, this is what really drove solar forward to become one of the main renewable energy sources in the energy mix is solar, alongside the others like such as wind. So a real interesting slide there, and a snapshot of what history was like. Zooming in on that a little bit, just to cover it off, we've got the initial investment of around 10,000 for a 2.5 kilowatt peak system. This would output 800 kilowatt hours per kilowatt peak per annum. And again, that is very low, and we have to relate that back to the size and the efficiency of the solar modules and the inverters at hand. But then the feed-in tariff rate really saves it for us. Okay. But the feed-in tariff was very much a victim of its own success, I would say. In order to take advantage of this very high rate of the electricity feed-in tariff, up to 41p, 51p, very high rates, the industry, and how to put this slightly, somewhat took advantage of this. So something called free solar was very prevalent during this time. And if I was an investor in this scenario and I had quite a lot of money to invest, I could say to a homeowner, please allow me to install solar on your property for free. So essentially leasing their roof. You will get all of the electricity you generate. I will take the feed-in tariff. And this led to a real widespread uptake, likely too fast, of the feed-in tariff scheme, which really shortened its lifespan. And what it did was, every time the feed-in tariff was then reduced by DEC, the Department of Energy and Climate Change. There was a gold rush to grab the higher rate before it was reduced. This put a lot of strain on the grid, on installation quality, and we had a real rush stop mentality across the whole company. This caused uncertainty in the market, and eventually when the feed-in tariff died out, a lot of companies exited the market. So the FIT is now closed for new applicants. And it was closed at the end of March 2019 with a really small rate still left over. But existing FIT agreements will still be honoured at their original value, and some of these installations, we call them like FIT legacy installations, they'll still be valid for another 10, 15 years at the rate at which they were first granted. So there is a future market there for someone to repower those systems, get them going, and definitely an opportunity there to look at. Eventually, the feed-in tariffs were replaced by something called the Smart Export Guarantee, but we're going to come on to that a little bit later. So here is a table from the MCS data dashboard of those installations. You can see the real peaks, troughs, and this is when the feed-in tariff was going to be reduced. So unfortunately, this wasn't a good way for the market to progress, to evolve, and eventually the market bottomed out. It wasn't sustainable. We didn't have grid parity. Solar and renewable energy couldn't achieve a rate of electricity that was at parity with what someone could buy from the grid. And then we have a spike. This is mainly some larger utility scale work. But now we can see the UK market has stabilized. We've achieved a lovely levelized cost of energy that's at grid parity, if not better in most cases. Okay, so this is really interesting, and it's a real great time to be in the UK solar energy and renewable energy market. So that big company Sharp then had to close their walls. This week, Sharp, Japanese technology company, announced its withdrawal from solar production in the UK with the closure of its facilities in Wrexham at a cost of 615 jobs. With just days to Christmas, workers have been told that Sharp's plant in Lalate in North Wales will be closing in February next year. The company will remain in Wrexham producing microwaves, but the solar plant will close. So unfortunately, 2013, the plant, there you go, in Wrexham had to close, and this was largely due to the influx of more cost-effective solar modules coming from Chinese origin of manufacture, and obviously the pressures of the feed-in tariff didn't help either. So onward and upward. We've battled our way through the 2010s. We're now into the 2020s. And really the focus these days is on moving towards what we call net zero. We want net zero by 2050. And this is a commitment to a net zero carbon economy by 2050, has really reinforced strategic advancements in renewable energy sectors, driven innovation in technology, and really helped expand on the renewable energy infrastructure. The integration of renewable energy is now seen as integral to national security and our economic strategy. It's not just an environmental initiative. So yeah, we need to secure our energy supply. We need to keep hospitals running. We need to keep the economy running, and renewable energy can become a real viable option for us to maintain that security for a very long time, with kind of the offshoot that we will also save the planet. So it's probably a win-win situation. But you can see here by the graph on the side, this is the EU emissions trajectory in a 1.5 Celsius scenario. So we're really trying to get to that zero where we're net neutral on carbon emissions. With that in mind, renewables now account for around 43% of the UK's electrical generation, with wind power being the major contributor. The growth trajectory positions the renewable sector as the cornerstone of the UK's future energy strategy, emphasising reliability, sustainability and affordability. If you ever want to check in on the mix in the UK, the national energy mix, check out National Grid Live. They have a great site, and I checked it just before this presentation today, and you can see that we are at 37.7% renewable energy. which is just wonderful. Solar doing a real big part of our renewable energy mix there, which means we're not burning any coal, and we're even doing more than nuclear today. So this is really quite a great site to look at if you're interested in what the current energy mix is and to look at how the industry is progressing. So what do we have now? We don't have the feed-in tariff, but we do have several policies and initiatives by central government and local governments that are helping people enable businesses to get renewable energy sources. One of the most innovative programs and most uptaken programs is the Renewable Heat Incentive. It stands as the world's first long-term financial support program designed to encourage the generation and use of renewable heat. Launched to facilitate the uptake of renewable heating technologies among businesses, non-domestic entities and households, the RHI aimed to significantly contribute to the UK's greenhouse gas reduction targets by incentivising a shift away from fossil fuel heating systems, which is very prevalent here in the UK. We have a lot of gas, central heating, etc., and we're trying to drive people away from those sources. Participants of the scheme receive payments for generating and using the renewable energy, so similar to the FIT, which underscores the government's commitment to transitioning towards more renewable energy sources. This innovative program operates by providing payments that help offset the initial costs of installing renewable heat technologies, thereby encouraging more widespread adoption and supporting the UK's ambitious environmental goals. So as well as the RHI, something which is very important on some of the more utility scale solar PV installations and other larger scale renewable energy installations is the Contracts for Difference scheme. So Contracts for Difference functions much like it does in other kind of markets, but it's a pivotal financial mechanism designed to bolster investment in the sector by providing a more predictable and stable revenue stream for renewable energy projects. So very briefly here, we cover this in more detail in NBC 101, but under a CFD scheme, a renewable energy generator enters into a contract with a counterparty, often government owned, to sell the energy they produce at what we call a strike price, and this is agreed, pre-agreed at a fixed rate. Then this is the key here, guys. If the market price for electricity is below the strike price, the generator receives payments for the difference, hence contracts for difference, ensuring they can sell their energy at a financially sustainable rate. Conversely, if the market price is above the strike price, the generator has to pay back the difference, ensuring fair play and cost effectiveness for consumers and taxpayers. So it's a good system. This model incentivizes the development of renewable energy projects by minimizing financial risks associated with fluctuating energy prices, thus accelerating the transition towards a greener energy grid. So we like contracts for difference. They've been great. Another incentive that we have is what's called the Smart Export Guarantee. So unlike the feed-in tariff, as the name suggests, the export guarantee gives you a payment for whatever you send back to the grid. Now, this image here on the right is actually quite old. Its price is dated January 2020. I would advise looking at the Solar Energy UK table for this. We have some really high rates these days, upwards of 20 to 30 pence in some cases, usually with caveats and stipulations, so do check those out. But energy suppliers with more than 150,000 domestic customers are obliged to provide at least one export tariff. This is residential, commercial, any type of installation. It's got to be greater than zero. You measure it with smart meters, and the SEG doesn't sell solar on its own or any renewable energy system on its own, but it does play a vital role in the overall ROI, the return on investment calculation for a renewable energy asset. Be sure to use the correct export rate in your financial payment calculations. Always get a utility bill from the client. We cover more of this in NBC 101, how you can integrate all of these incentives into your models and make the payback look really good for the client, which it is. The SEG scheme is applicable to renewable energy systems that utilize any of the following: solar photovoltaic panels, domestic wind turbines, micro-combined heat and power, anaerobic digestion, and hydro. The customer must possess a smart or AMR meter that can provide half-hourly readings. Customer must have an export MPAN, okay, which you can get from your installer once they make the notification, the DNO notification. You, the customer, must complete the application form and provide all the required documentation. And again, there's a link there, guys, to the Energy Saving Trust website. And if you would like a copy of these slides, please do just email me at michael@middlemass.com and we'll get you the slides over. So let's quickly look, before we finish today, at the future and the current, indeed, markets that are available to us in the United Kingdom and the renewable energy sector. When the FIT was removed, I'm not going to lie, it was really tough, especially for residential installers. A lot of installers didn't stay with us. They left the industry. And as such, competition among remaining the installation companies was very high. However, SAP, Standard Assessment Procedure, installation numbers within the residential new build sector were quite high. And that means if I'm building 600, 700, whatever number of houses, homes, they have to hit a certain energy performance certificate rating, and that's based on the Standard Assessment Procedure. If they don't hit the rating, they just need a little push, a few more points to get the rating required, we can install PV. And that market was always very big. However, the current geopolitical crisis and the base price of energy has increased greatly. So now all kind of solar PV installations in the residential sector are super viable and very popular once again. We're seeing payback models of between 3 to 4 years for a typical installation. So we could have the private homeowner who is generally looking to lower their electricity rate, protect against rising costs. They do have concerns about the environment. Likely they have money to spend on home improvements. This could be a new build property, existing property. So this is the core of the residential market, which is the private homeowner. As mentioned, we've got the house builder, new buildings, new dwellings. They're looking to achieve the minimum for the standard application process and the energy performance certificate rating of a property, looking for a cost-effective solution, standardized design for ease of install and delivery, not interested perhaps in the lifelong performance, just wants that tick box. And I don't mean to be disparaging there, but in some cases that really is how it works. We just need the system to be functional. Some examples for you of typical residential arrays and some of the issues that we see. Here we have a home which has a lot of solar, but there are a lot of obstructions. And here at NBC Renewables, we are also available for design such as this, and for shading analysis inquiries. Also, we can make a very professional design for you, and just some typical UK residential designs there. Now, the residential sector is very, very interesting, and in NBC 101, we spend a good portion of our time looking at these markets in more detail. But moving on now to the commercial solar market, when we look at the levelized cost of energy, so when we say, when we compare the cost of producing solar to buying it from the grid, solar sources have been dramatically declining in price, more than 80% over the last decade, and this positions solar as not only a viable but preferable choice for energy procurement strategies within businesses. This downward trend in costs, coupled by advancements in photovoltaic technology and efficiency, remember how lacking in efficiency the older modules were, has really created a compelling value proposition for most businesses, and it's galvanized this forward-thinking mentality. Procurement within the commercial, industrial, and agricultural sectors has taken a real focus on the utility bill, and they're looking at ways to drive costs down on that line of the P&L, and solar is a great way to do it. Moreover, guys, the deployment of commercial solar PV systems is really projected to surge exponentially, with forecasts indicating a doubling of capacity in the coming 5 years. Doubling of capacity. Wow, what an opportunity, what a market to be in. Some examples for you, again, from our design work. Commercial scale can come in all shapes and sizes: flat roof, trapezoidal roof, odd roofs, etc. Utility scale solar here in the United Kingdom is really growing. Massive acceptance in most counties across the UK. Not many objections now. Many ambitious photovoltaic projects are lined up in the forecast period that will be driving the solar market in the coming years. So when we look up to 2030 to 2050. According to the report by the Solar Trade Association, solar power installed capacity can reach more than 25,000 megawatts by the end of 2030. Such estimated growth will create vast opportunities for the solar power market players. Utility scale solar is only set to increase here in the UK as just more and more of our counties come online and want to accept it into their neighbourhoods. So again, just more examples of utility scale and large scale ground mount design from NBC Renewables. We can offer carports, ground mounted systems, etc. Do contact us. So we've had utility scale, commercial, residential. As mentioned, we break down these sectors a lot more in NBC 101 Renewable Energy Industry Training. Please be sure to check out nbcrenewables.com and get signed up for our next session there. But another really interesting development here in the UK, which we're seeing more and more of, are microgrids. And microgrids are becoming a real big deal here in the UK, and it essentially allows us to minimize the impact on our national grid. It eases the distribution network operators' troubles in terms of export and how much energy we should be sending back to the grid, while allowing the properties and consumers themselves to really open up large renewable energy generation from wind and solar, without worrying about the main utility grid. It gives us a real lot of flexibility. So microgrids is something that we should be looking out for. By fitting into an existing electricity system smartly, microgrids help in managing demand more smoothly, and they really alleviate grid congestion. This can lead to lower electricity prices and lessen the need for peak power. It's a win-win for everyone. It makes our energy system more reliable as a whole across the country, reduces costs, and can even postpone the need for additional infrastructure investments. So that's really important. Microgrids represent a smart, adaptable component of the UK's renewable energy strategy. They're not just about ensuring energy is used more efficiently, they're also about making our energy systems more flexible, reliable, and capable of integrating renewables at a larger scale. Some quick advantages for you. They improve the reliability of the grid, okay, and improve the reliability at a local source. So on both sides, we don't have to worry about exporting too much, and we don't have to worry about not having enough. This autonomy means that they can continue to provide a local power supply even when there are outages on the main grid, enhancing reliability, especially in emergency situations or for critical facilities like hospitals, etc. They enhance energy efficiency. Given their locality, okay, microgrids can often result in lower transmission losses, so we're not moving the power over longer distances. Energy produced locally is used locally, bypassing the inefficiencies associated with long distance electricity transmission. And also when there's sites that are not requiring a microgrid, or for some reason can't have a microgrid, having a microgrid at a different location frees up the infrastructure there for them to do some exportation. We've got flexibility and scalability. Microgrids can incorporate a mix of traditional and renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power. We can also have steady state electricity supplies like diesel generators even in the mix. And this flexibility allows for a scalable approach to energy generation and consumption, tailoring this to the specific needs and capabilities of a community or an area. We then have environmental benefits, and by facilitating the integration of renewable energy sources, microgrids can sustainably reduce the carbon footprint of energy consumption, supporting more sustainable energy ecosystems. There are some disadvantages, of course, and just to cover them briefly, the high capital expenditure, okay, is the main one. The installation and development costs for microgrids can be high, especially regarding the need for sophisticated technology and storage solutions to ensure reliability and efficiency, particularly in design as well. I found this is a real challenge, how we design these systems. We're kind of underprepared for that, and how we can get this done reliably and safely. There's also regulatory and technical challenges. Microgrids face regulatory barriers due to existing frameworks, mainly designed for large central power systems, so they apply to microgrids. Additionally, integrating and managing different energy sources within the microgrid itself, again, is a complex technical and design engineering challenge. Particularly now on this last point, dependency on weather, this is another big point because if we're filling the microgrid with just solar energy or wind, these are energy sources that are highly dependent on environmental conditions, particularly in the winter months for solar. We don't get enough solar irradiance to activate the photovoltaic effect, which means we can't fill the batteries. Wind can be an intermittent power source, not always reliable. So microgrid performance can fluctuate due to varying weather conditions, potentially impacting on the overall reliability of the system. So we have residential, commercial, industrial. We've got microgrids. We can also look at the long-term operations and maintenance in this market. The solar PV operations and maintenance market in the UK is going to play a real pivotal role in everyone's business and in our net zero targets. If we can't get these systems working correctly and safely, it's just not going to be a success. So in a robust move towards enhancing O&M practices, Solar Energy UK published the second edition of their rooftop operations and maintenance best practice guides. They did that in 2021. I think that's a really big step, and we should be having more and more and more of the focus of our industry on this operations and maintenance area. There should be more guides for different sectors, for different applications, for microgrids. It's the only way that we're going to move things forward safely and give confidence to not only consumers, but to installers and also insurers, because if these things start going wrong, insurances on buildings and on properties in general can be going up. So it's something we really do need to focus on. NBC Renewables has a very strong focus on operations and maintenance. We offer health checks. We can do training on safety testing and commissioning systems with our NBC 104. So please do check out our asset management capacity. But there are a few different types of O&M. We've got preventative maintenance. This includes the routine inspection and servicing of equipment, which can help prevent breakdowns, reduce energy yield losses. PM is a scheduled activity. It could also include cleaning, which is very prevalent or needed rather in a lot of sectors such as the industrial and agricultural sectors. Condition-based monitoring involves the monitoring of equipment remotely on a real-time basis with some kind of monitoring platform, but this platform does have to be very robust. And then we've got corrective maintenance, which is fixing systems that haven't been looked after in the right way, or maybe there's been an act of God that's damaged the modules that we need to assess. So that's where we are, and that's where we've been. But moving forward, innovation does remain at the core of the UK's renewable energy strategy. You can see that we're emerging with new technologies, with tidal power, new battery solutions. There are UK microgrid manufacturers. Carbon capture and storage are very much aggressively researched in our universities. And this example here I have on the screen, the next generation perovskite solar cells being researched here in the UK as well, are going to create very highly efficient solar modules. So we are pushing forward. I would also say not only on the technologies, but we innovate in our fiscal mechanisms such as the smart export guarantee, contracts for difference. As long as we keep innovating, I believe the market has a great future and we can hit net zero. There are great challenges and opportunities, but the transition to a greener grid presents both challenges and opportunities. We're integrating intermittent renewable energy sources while maintaining grid stability is going to require a great deal of work. That's to be said, as mentioned earlier, solar not operating as well in the winter, wind being intermittent depending on environmental conditions. This kind of mixed with steady state energy sources. The real the real issue we have at the moment is we don't have the software to handle that. So the digitization of the energy sector with smart grids is really going to be the future. We need better monitoring, active monitoring. We need people to come on board with smart meters. We need even better than half-hourly data sets in our design and in our management systems. So yeah, digitization and the software. I dare say it, but even AI, to keep this all running smoothly is really going to be our big challenge, but also our big opportunity. So, in conclusion, the UK's renewable energy journey is a story of strategic planning, robust policy frameworks, and substantial investment in future technologies. I hope I've demonstrated that for you. With continued governmental and indeed market support alongside these technical innovations, the UK is really well positioned to not only meet its environmental targets, but to lead the global charge towards a more sustainable future, as we have done in the past. And our commitment to renewable energy is really unwavering. We want that security. We want to be a global leader. And this sets our course towards a more resilient, sustainable, and economically viable and vibrant energy landscape here in the UK. So thank you for joining me today. My name is Michael Middlemast from MBC Renewables. More than happy to take any questions that you have. I would love to hear your comments. Please do check us out at www.mbcrenewables.com and please do get in touch at michael@middlemast.com.